it relates to the PR and communication. And at that time, the Accountant General's Department did not have a division for PR and communication. So really the role of PR and communication was really with customer service representatives. And I'm saying, no, there is some lack there, and we recognize the gap. I started doing different articles, start reaching out to different media practitioners, and just start doing things that I really wasn't being paid for. I was just doing this outside of my job description, outside of my role. But because I recognize that in order to change the face of the Accountant General's Department, we have to get into the habit of the whole PR and communication, and not just customer service, because it doesn't matter how well your customer service and your delivery is, if it is not marketed properly, and if it is not positioned in a way that others will recognize you are, then a lot of it doesn't really make sense. And my AG at the time, I'm happy she was very supportive. She was just running with the ideas. And she came to me one day and she was like, what do you think about being our PR officer? And I said, okay, but my formal education as well is certainly not in that field. However, I was open to the idea, and I then recognized, okay, I like this and I will go on to do formal training in PR and communication. And we moved from just being a PR officer until we were actually doing the reorganization of the department, and we made a recommendation, and a unit was formed, which is the communication and customer service unit. And I then applied formally for the position thereafter and became the director for PR, communication, and customer service. So I am now running the entire unit, which we have 24 staff in that unit. And I was just the customer service manager at the time. But as some of our other counterparts indicated, you have to ask for what you want. You have to just take initiative, do what is necessary. And sometimes it's not just about the money, but it is about doing what you love, and it will get there. It will get there. So just know that when you see something, make a move to make a difference. And as young people, I love to hear their feedbacks. I absolutely love the change that they have brought to the government sector, because as you know, once upon a time, we weren't even looking at social media and embracing the changes that come with that. But our young people know, and on my team, oh my, I absolutely love the young people's view, because they always bring something fresh, new ideas, and I always welcome them. So that's my 2 cents for now.
Thank you very much, Tanisha. We will now move on to Vashon Brown.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, Vashon.
So my story is perhaps a little bit different from everybody else's, because a major fixture of many universities is the internship program. And I'm sure you also have that as part of UTEC's media program as well. I studied at Northern Caribbean University, and I did internship at Television Jamaica in May 2011. So when I was preparing for my internship, I thought about what I wanted to get out of it. And I knew that at the end of it, I wanted to get a job. I remember when I was doing internship at the time, I had coworkers around who gave me valuable advice. And Nadine, you're also one of the people in the newsroom that I met when I was on that internship program. So when I was doing the internship, I thought about how I could make an impact. And one of the things I did during that process was to ensure that I worked long hours. I was always willing to learn, because there's this tendency to stick to what you've learned in university and not want to venture outside of that particular box. But I would urge you, it's important to always think about how you can do things differently and always be willing to learn new things when you get into that specific space. But another important point I would suggest in this regard as well is to try to learn everything. I remember when I was on internship, I mean, I'm not good at technical video editing, but I ended up learning editing, even though I was interested in presenting and I was also interested in reporting. And so I think it's important that you try to learn everything. Now, I worked on All Angles, as Giovanni suggested, and I think you'll hear from Andre later on. I actually took over All Angles after he was the producer for that particular show. And I learned a lot from Dion Jackson Miller while working on that program. So my point here as well is you should always try to use the resources around you and try to always learn from them. Belinda spoke about the importance of having people spot your talent and having people notice you. I think internship is that opportunity that you can be discovered by people because you're trying to get a job that so many people want. I mean, there are just so few media spaces in the traditional media and just so many people. And so I used internship to get discovered. Archibald Gordon was my boss, and he was my boss for 7 years. And he discovered my talent and he gave me the opportunity. But as well, I worked with Simone Clark Cooper. She was the one who trained me to be a presenter. And at 25, I started anchoring primetime news. That's because Simone Clark Cooper recommended to the newsroom's management that she thought that I could be given the opportunity to do more. And so I want to latch on to that point that Belinda made about people discovering your talent. So those are just some of the things I want to share now. Nadine, I was very, very excited when I saw that video, when you spoke about the convergence of media, the fact that UTech teaches the relationship between traditional media and new media, because that's one of the changes that's now taking place in the newsrooms. You find that newsrooms globally now have social media editors. They have people who coordinate social media. So I also want you to think about jobs outside of the typical RJR Gleaner Communications Group, outside of CVM, outside of Observer, and also try to latch on to these new job opportunities that social media now provides. I mean, YouTube is now a big sensation. In fact, I think we're now streaming on YouTube. So a lot of content is also on YouTube. And that's one of the areas that you can also channel your energies to also find jobs, I think.
Thank you very much for that, Vashon. And you mentioned Andre earlier. He's here with us. Andre, can you please introduce yourself and tell us how you started in media and communication?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Andre Jefferson, as Nadine mentioned. God, I've been waiting a long time, but finally.
I knew you would say that.
Yeah, but I one of the themes that we've been hearing since the conversation started is being open, but also having a plan. Because I mean, to survive in this industry, you have to have a plan. You have to know where you want to go, and try and map out a route where you want to get to that particular location. Granted, it probably will not happen the way that you want it to happen, but I mean, still have that plan. And if something comes and derail that plan, or even something better comes along, then you should also grab that opportunity. How I started, I decided from third form that I wanted to be a journalist, and I didn't want to be just a journalist. I wanted to be a journalist at TVJ. I didn't want to go CBM. I didn't want to go Gleaner. I didn't want to go anywhere else. I decided third form, I wanted to be a journalist at TVJ. So after CXC, I pursued mass comm and journalism. And after I graduated, I studied overseas. After I finished that, I came back to Jamaica, and I was trying to find a job. I sent out applications to everywhere, but like I said, I wanted to work at TVJ. I got 2 interviews, one at JIS and the other one at the Gleaner. The thing about TVJ at the time is that once people get in that job, they really weren't leaving. So you would have to sit and wait for somebody to leave or someone to be promoted, and people just don't leave that job. And that's part of what has happened over the years. It has evolved because people have been, leaving. But so I decided, like Giovanni said, I just needed to get my foot into the door. So I went at JIS, I interviewed at JIS. The man told me, say, I thought foolishness, and I was going back and front with the man, and I knew I wasn't going to get that job. And then I went for the interview at the Gleaner, and I interviewed, weeks had passed, and I didn't hear anything from them. So I started calling them every day because I wanted the job. I called them, until they finally, and in the time that I was waiting, I decided, you know what, I'm just sitting here not doing anything. So I called up CVM, even though I didn't want to work there. I called them up and told them, I will volunteer my service up there in the daytime, and help them in the newsroom, write if I have to write, and so on, hoping that they will discover that talent. Well, they probably didn't discover the talent, but I finally got a call from the Gleaner. I got the job, and I spent about a year and a half at the Gleaner until I saw this advertisement in the newspaper. They were looking for a producer and a presenter at Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, PBCJ, cable station. I saw the job immediately, and I thought I was going to apply and interview for the job. And when I finally got the job and I was leaving the Gleaner to go to PBCJ, you know, people were questioning why would you leave the Gleaner, which has been around for many years, over 100 years, to go to this unknown station. But I figured, you know, if people can spot your talent, this is one of the ways in which people will be able to spot your talent. And so I left the Gleaner, went to PBCJ, started doing Parliament and a couple other government shows because I love politics. And then, like I've been saying, and then there was an opening at TVJ, and then they brought me over, and I spent a number of years at TVJ. And you know, after doing it day in, day out for a while, you know, your weekends and public holidays and so on, it became a little not what I wanted to do much more. Even though I still wanted to remain in media, I didn't want to be doing it day in, day out. And then another opportunity came. Mark Golding at the time, when he was Justice Minister, you know, he asked me if I wanted to come aboard, you know, and be his advisor on communications.
Hold a second, Andre. I'm going to ask the students to. We cannot mute all because we will also be muting Andre. Andre?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so after being at TVJ for a while with oh, by the way, when I was at TVJ, I decided I was going to take the opportunity and do every single thing that I can, which is how I ended up producing All Angles, because Archie used to produce and then he became news editor. And I was like, oh man, I've been watching this show from whatever, and I really like it. And so I decided that I wanted to be a part of the program, and then they made me All Angles producer. And I was, you know, by the time I left TVJ, I was doing government politics because I'd found my niche and I really liked it, and that's what I was doing. And then, like I said, I went to work with Mark Golding as his PR and communication consultant advisor. Went back to TVJ, you know, because, you know, some of those jobs, you lose them after election come. And after TVJ, after the new administration came in again, Dr. Tufton reached out to me and offered me a job as well. And I took that one. And from there, I did a couple other stints elsewhere, but now I'm communications manager for a medical cannabis company out of Canada, but their farms are in Jamaica. Cultivation is in Jamaica and a couple other areas. And going back to what Belinda said, it is important that, you know, you're open, but also if you're going to choose, if whatever job you have, it is important to research your job, research the area, and know fully, because for me, for example, I'm working in communications, but I've never done anything with medical cannabis or whatever. It's a new industry. So you have to continuously be reading and learning what's taking place in the industry. And also, you know, bouncing things off people who you think can give you some input into anything that you may need to do to navigate what is really a novel industry in this formal way. So that's how I got my start, and that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, thank you very much, Andre. And we're now going to move on to Jordan Fort. Jordan, you two have been waiting for a long time. You're into sports journalism, which quite a number of our students are interested in. Okay, great. I'm happy to hear that, because to me, honestly, I don't think I've seen enough, just based on my vantage point, in terms of people coming in, young people coming in wanting to do sports journalism. But anyway, let me just tell you about how I started. It was interesting to hear Belinda go first, because I wouldn't say that I started in banking. I was trained in media and communication because I went to Carimac, and that's where I did my first degree. And I actually got a summer internship, a summer job really, at NCB. And really what we're doing is,
I guess you can call it filing, but not necessarily in the traditional sense. We weren't doing physical paperwork. We're literally updating clients' KYC files. That might sound like a foreign language to everybody else, but I'm sure Belinda knows what I'm talking about. And so I did that for one summer job, just to get a little change in the pocket. They gave you a stipend, so that was good. And then after I graduated from Karimak, I went back there. NCB said, yeah, we still need, they always have those things to do. So I went back there and I thought maybe it could be an opportunity for me to, go into the banking sector, at least until I got into media, because that was always my aim. But I think I kind of realized very early that sitting around that desk for 8 hours a day was not for me. And, my love of sports and media was just a little bit too strong. Interestingly, I was based at the, I don't know what to call it. It's in New Kingston in NCB. But anyway, it's not an actual branch. Just up the road was KLAS on Haining Road. So my mother knew someone who worked at KLAS. And of course, because she knew I wanted to go into media, she said, yeah, man, just tell him, send me his resume and I'll send it to the person at KLAS. And I said, okay, fine. Sent the resume, got the interview at KLAS, and I was able to just walk from NCB one lunchtime and go around to KLAS and, do the interview. And they said, when can you start? And, I started shortly after. I don't remember how long after, but it was really soon after. I was excited at the opportunity because, of course, that's where my passion really was. Nothing near the pay that I had even asked for, nothing near the pay that could sustain me, to be honest with you. I have to be brutally honest. But I wanted to, as everybody has been saying before me, to get a foot into the industry. And so the good thing actually about KLAS is that you get to do, it's radio only, but you get to do a bit of everything. So because they don't have a very big staff, at least not when I was there, and it was a very small sports team. And so you had to write, you had to produce, you had to do voiceovers for promos and commercials. You had to do just about a little bit of everything. You had to do interviews, you had to learn how to interview people, you had to go out on the road on your own. They throw you out into the deep end, which to me is actually a good thing because it gives you that hands-on, on-the-job type of experience. So that's where I started. I stayed there for about a year, a little bit over a year. And then actually Ricardo Chambers at TVJ, I saw him at stadium one day and he said to me, I think he was at Karimak at the time I was there. And he said to me, why not send your resume to TVJ? So I said, what do you mean? And him say, send it. So to be honest with you, I took it as a joke and I didn't do it initially. And then I saw him again at another track meet at stadium and he said, have you sent it yet? And I said, no. And he said, send it. And I said, but if they're interested, they'd probably reach out. And he said, no, don't take that approach. If you want it, then you should indicate your interest. And that's what I did. I sent my resume. And then a couple weeks after that, I got the job at TVJ. There was an opening in the sports department, luckily. And so it was almost like it worked out pretty well, to be honest with you. But I say that, but then I also want to say that it is not necessarily going to work out like that for you. I remember when I was doing my internship, while I was at Karimak, they offer an internship in your second year, I believe it was when I was there. And I interned at Sportsmax. But I remember asking if, any of the interns would get the opportunity to be on camera, throughout the internship. And it was like, what is wrong with this young man?
Yes.
Is he serious?
Being quite high. Yes.
you're a universe. What do you mean camera? And it was the response was basically, just take it easy, calm down.
Calm down.
Yeah, slow your roll a little bit. So actually I use that as motivation because initially I was like, camera, I don't know if I necessarily want to be on TV. I was always a reserved person, And so that wasn't necessarily my focus, but I think that kind of gave me some extra motivation. And I was actually thereafter determined to get onto TV, just to prove that, I actually feel like I can do it. I feel like I belong here. And next thing I want to point out, I took note of the thing you played at the start, Nadine. And I think I've worked with a few UTech people, and I noticed that I like the fact that they have a good work ethic, and I like the fact that they don't. I think UE has a reputation of being too engrossed in theory and reading, and I think UTech has that reputation of more being a hands-on practical type of thing, and I think that's what you have to get when you're coming into media. And I want to tell all the students here that when you actually get a foot in the door, remember that even though you may have your degree, your training, your formal training in the area, remember that when you get a foot in the door, all you are is trainable. So your degree only means that you have the basic principles, but really and truly, you're going to discover so many other things that you weren't exposed to in the classroom or even in your internship and so on. There are going to be so many other things for you to learn. So as I said, don't think that because you've been trained in the area that you know all this. You really know nothing. And I say that very humbly. I went into the thing after 3 years at Karimak. I really knew nothing. I knew nothing. I had to really be learning, having gotten a foot in the door. So keep your mind very open. And I think somebody said it, always be open to coming up with new ideas. Because even though there are people who are in the industry for 15, 20, 25, 30 years, remember it's evolving constantly. And you talk about new media, you talk about social media. Always remember that you will have an advantage in those areas where this quote unquote stalwarts will not. So think of things outside the box and think of ways how you can make your mark differently from the people who are already in there. So that's my short.
Thank you so much for that, Jordan. So we spoke about getting into the industry. But as a former journalist, one of the things I know is that when you get into the industry, you realize that it is extremely competitive. How do you stay in the industry and thrive, especially thrive? I'm going to ask Jordan to continue on that and to answer that question. And then Andre will take it from there and then we'll go along.
Yeah, so to get into it, as I said, you have to constantly recreate yourself. So I took note about something about Belinda said, and my advice to you would be specialize, but don't be a specialist. So have knowledge of your area, try to gain as much knowledge and experience as you can. Look for every opportunity to become an expert. And when I say expert, I don't mean that you're going to become somebody who you think you're beyond reproach or anything, but I mean just gain enough hours and enough experience in that area that you can be valuable to that area. But don't be a specialist, meaning don't be tied down to that one specific area. So right now, even though I'm in sports, I can tell you that I'm actually actively looking for any other opportunities to expand just beyond that, because I don't want to pigeonhole myself, and I don't want to be seen as only, because I can tell you people do that very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I'm in electronic media. I never mentioned that I work at TVJ or the RJ Aglino group, but I'm in electronic media, and you'll find that once you get on air, people start to associate you with a certain thing, and in some people's minds, you get stuck there. And I can tell you that because some people would have looked at me initially and said, "Oh," and they heard me talking about track and field and say, "Oh, he's a track and field journalist." When I can do so much more, and somebody else may have heard me talking about cricket or whatever it is, and so they pigeonhole you very quickly, and just like that, you are known for that one thing. So it's always important to keep recreating yourself. Simon Crossgill, who is one of the persons I look up to in media, who I'm sure everybody here should know, he gave me that advice as well, because he is multifaceted, multi-talented, I would say. And he did sports as well, but he does so much more than that. And he does He can talk about politics, and you remember he did morning time TV, and you know, he was just very diverse in whatever he did. And in this industry, that's actually how you're going to earn, because
Yes. Yes.
essentially your salary, don't look for your salary to be what is going to keep you. So you ask Nadine, the question is, how do you thrive? Find those other ways. So actually, when you become an on-air personality, people get interested in your voice and people get interested in your appearance. And so you may actually be asked to give speeches. You may actually be asked to do voiceovers and so on. Those may represent other forms of income for you. And those may represent opportunities for you to continue to grow in the industry, but also to stay afloat, because people like Andre, as you would have heard earlier, he's not quite here anymore. And I'm sure it's because he's looking for greener pastures outside. But I mean, I know he's always back and forth, but again, it's difficult to stay in this industry with just your salary alone. So you're asking how to thrive, find other ways of making yourself relevant in other areas. And so you can continue to, you know, to grow in the media industry. There's one more thing I wanted to say in terms of the opportunities, taking opportunities. And you mentioned the interview. The first interview I did, I didn't get that job. Well, I didn't hear back from the people at all. And I remember during the interview, they asked you to put down start what you want your starting salary to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the figure that I put on the paper. That's the reason I didn't get called back. Needless to say, that didn't stop me. But what I want to say is that don't only look for job opportunities in the paper or online or wherever else. Try to, as you said, voluntary services. What I've learned from being in the media industry is that they're always looking for people. They're always looking for people to add value. They're always looking. For example, we had the election the other day, and the election is a big production. And throughout the election production, they will always be looking for people to at least even be production assistants. And that can be a way of you getting in. There is, for example, the Olympic Games, the big production in sports. That again is an area where we're always looking for people to come in and add value. And I think that's one thing I want to see, you know, the media houses, I don't know, maybe because of COVID and so on, but what the partnerships are like in terms of the universities, have more students who are studying media come in and be a part of the newsroom. You learn a lot from just sitting down and watching somebody, how they operate on a daily basis and delivering. You see primetime news on the air, but you get to come in at 8 in the morning and see how it goes from thought right through to the full production that you see on air. So I think those opportunities, anytime you get a glimpse of any of those opportunities, take those opportunities.
Take them. Okay. Thank you very much, Jordan. Andre, how do you thrive in the industry?
So part of what you need to do is to become indispensable. So it might sound like, you know, it's cliche-ish, but it's really what you need to do. So like people have been saying, like Jordan have been saying, and I was actually going to jump off on the point that during election, if you look at the election coverage 2 weeks ago, you have people like Jordan and everybody else who was out in the field. And I mean, they're not saying, we're not talking about cricket and track and field and stuff, but I mean, you still need to have a certain awareness about what is taking place in the industry and also in your newsroom. So you can, if they call you and say, all right, guess what? We're down an anchor tonight. We needed to anchor. You need to be able to say, okay, I'm a sports anchor, but guess what? It's news. I'm a journalist, because I think they've been trying to make this distinction over the years that it's not really a sports journalist. You're a journalist. You're just a journalist who is doing sports.
Who's doing sports.
Right. So,
yes.
So it's really about being able to do multiple things. Like I can technical edit. I can. Well, probably that's it. But I can technical edit. I can do other things. I can do radio and so on. But my love is really in news and government and politics. But it is equally important to find your niche. equally important to find a niche and really become well-versed in whatever your niche is. So for example, for election just passed today, I'm not a TVJ anymore, but I want people to say, God, I wish Andre was here for this coverage because of the value that I can bring to a particular subject. So it's really being able to do multiple things, but also being able to do the thing that you love and do it really well. So people will miss you when you're not around. And if you tell people that you're leaving, they say, oh, I'm going to increase your money so you can at least stay with us. And that's how it works in the industry.
It's happened to you a couple of times. Okay, thank you. Belinda, we're going to move to you. How do you thrive? You said you've been in marketing and communication for 30 years, Belinda.
This year will make it 30.
Started when you were 1?
Thank you. But Jordan knows that no, it has been 30 years, 31 to be exact. And from a private sector perspective, and as someone that has participated in terms of not only just being on the cusp of doing interviews, as well as participating in identifying or being the subject matter experts for people who are applying for certain jobs and participating in identifying what their training needs are. I can tell you that how do you survive, especially when you're in the private sector, is not dissimilar to what everyone else has said.
Yes.
About being aware and fully knowledgeable to the extent of even going outside of the area or the scope of what it is that is within the realm of what you're supposed to be communicating on. So it's having full application and full knowledge, but it's not just having the knowledge and the awareness, it's about applying it and about always, I think Jordan spoke about that, always being ready. You can never tell, and we would have seen enough movies that demonstrate this. You know, something happened, somebody don't come in, they need somebody right away. You might just be the person that they're gonna call and throw in front of the camera. You might just be the person that they'll throw in front of the mic. And I say this because you are the communicator, you are the facilitator, you are the operator, you know all that is happening behind the scene. So in the event that something happens and you need to fill in for someone that's absent, by all means, you should be ready. And in being ready, it means also not only just your presence, but your physical appearance, your knowledge, your ability to also be able to just take a material. If something is going on.
And also training yourself behind the scenes, because that's how I got started. I knew I wanted to present. So every single morning I would look into the mirror before I became a presenter, and I would present until the opportunity came. And it was an opportunity like that. I think Karen Lee couldn't come in, and she asked me the night to come in, myself and another person. And it so happened that I went on. So you're right, Belinda. Always try to prepare yourself for whatever you want. And it doesn't have to be formal preparation. That's what I wanted to add.
That is correct. And I'm going to give you a little bit of insight. You can never.
Belinda?
Yes. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? You're hearing me? Yes.
I'm hearing you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bashan. Thanks, Andre. So basically what happens too is that because everybody's at a different state of readiness and everybody's opportunity is not going to come the same way. You should always be in a constant state of readiness. And by saying that, I recall once in one of the duties that I had, and we had to travel, the person that I prepared this material for, I ended up going ahead and his flight was canceled.
Okay.
He was not, you know, who are the people that were supposed to be on that panel? At the time, it was Bruce Golding and all of the ministerial people. I'm like, oh my God, my boss don't come. What's going to happen? No, I had to go and represent for the organization because I can't have it that because my boss don't come, I don't have somebody on the panel or I don't have somebody who can speak. And to be honest, I went because I would have enough knowledge because I prepared the script with him. I would know exactly what his speaking points and key messages are. If there were anything that is falling outside of the scope of what I would have been able to speak to, then I would find a way to redress that at some other point in time. But that opportunity allowed me to have met Honorable Bruce Golding. And in meeting Bruce Golding, when he became Prime Minister, he automatically invited me to sit on a couple boards. So it had nothing to do with political. It had a lot to do with your option and where you sat at a particular point in time and how you represented yourself. Now, no one could have told them that I wasn't the original speaker. So you just have to make sure. And as communicators, PR people, marketing people, we all do the same thing.
Yes.
Content and communication is our tool.
Yes.
And we should use it to our advantage. So how do we thrive? It's going to be on multiple things. Remember, you have to look at multiple streams of income roundabout now. Multiple streams of income means being extremely creative. Creativity is what we have in our arsenal, in our toolkit, and we should use it to our advantage. Somebody spoke about what's in it for me. I think it was Andre. Guys, be constantly asking yourself, what's in this for me? But don't do it selfishly. You should do it with a passion, with a notion that when you leave, you would have added value as well as you would have extracted value.
Thank you very much for that, Belinda. We will now move on to Vashon with the same question. How do you thrive?
So thank you so much, Nadine. I think a lot of people, well, all the other panelists have agreed on one thing, and that is people need to add value to the spaces that they enter. So I wanted to advance that a bit by looking at how do you exactly add value. And one of those ways, I think, is always speaking up in the spaces that you are. I find that a lot of young people tend to censor themselves and not want to put their ideas forward because we know very well that we're fighting against a system that believes that young people don't really know much.
Yes,
but
yes.
that is absolutely not true. You do have a lot to add. And I think that when you enter those spaces and you disagree with something, you say it. And if you think that this is the direction that the program should go, this is the direction that I think our newsroom should go, you should say that. I remember when I was on All Angles, that opportunity was given to me that you need to speak up. But at the same time, I was troubled by the fact that I was new to the newsroom. I had just 1 or 2 years experience when I started working on the program. And I was working with Dion Jackson Miller. Now, how dare you wanting to say you want to take All Angles in a different direction when you're working with somebody who's had over 20 years of experience. So you also think about the unequal power relation that creates. But I think it's still important that you add your voice, you say why you disagree. And a lot of people like Dion would take your ideas on board and will think about them. And at the end of the day, you would have added value to that specific place and therefore improved the overall quality of the product that the newsroom would produce.
Thank you very much, Vashon. Tanisha, same questions for you.
Okay, so within the government spaces, thriving is really about learning and learning as much as you possibly can. And I must add, not just your niche and your space that you're in, but for argument's sake, in the government, in the Accountant General's Department, we are pushed to learn about other ministries and departments. And you find that as long as the newsrooms get a hold of your name and know that you are willing to speak on certain matters, they will always call you. So you always have to be ready and on point. And working with the Accountant General's Department, the first thing people hear is pension. So even if it has nothing to do with central government pension, as long as there's going to be a conversation around pension, you find that the newsroom immediately, they're on your phone, they're sending you an email, can you respond to this? But even if you don't know the answer, you have to be knowledgeable enough to be able to point them in the right direction. So it is about, for us, I think it is more so about being knowledgeable, constantly reading. Do not depend on just what people say, but have your own material. I always turn to the various legislations, turn to the various acts and regulations, because at the end of the day, it's not about what you believe in the government. It is primarily what is entrenched in the acts and the regulations. So you have to keep abreast of the changes, the amendments, and just ensure that as a communicator, you are equipped with the information at hand. So at any point in time, whether on the street or if it is the newsroom or any program that you're on, you always, if you're called upon, you're ready. And that will, I think it was Andre who said it, it makes you become kind of
marketable.
not that you are, but persons will know that they're losing someone of value when they know they can depend on you if you have information at your fingertip. So even within my department, I mean, whichever area within the Accountant General's department you just ask a question about, it doesn't have to be about pension. It can be about the consolidated fund. It can be about things in the government in general. I need to be abreast of what is going on. So at the end of the day, I am able to operate within any space if someone were to call upon me.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Talia.
Okay, what I will just add, I think you all said a lot. In terms of just making your own space and your presence felt is very important. What's also important, and I think probably you've heard it before, your network is your net worth. So getting your foot in is one thing. Growing in the space is another thing. And it's so important that you know people and you are acquainted with these people who will actually recommend you in spaces that you aren't even thought of. These people put your names in rooms that you need to get where you want to go. So I think I had mentioned before in terms of surrounding yourselves with like-minded individuals. And those persons, they don't have to be in media and communications, you know, but they just have to share that same vision with you and where you want to go. So therefore, if an opportunity comes up and you are not in the room, they can recommend you for it. Because if you really think about it, you won't always be everywhere. But your network is your network, net worth, sorry. And there are some persons who will actually just spot your talent, spot your growth, spot your determination and give you that opportunity. I will also tell you, see any opportunity that you get with your foot in or through the door, take it as if it is your last. Put on your best outfit, give it your 1000%, because as a result of you giving your 1000%, you'd be surprised at how many opportunities will come your way just by someone seeing you and seeing you give your best at that time. It's always important to put your best foot forward and give of your best, even if you are not being compensated for it. Because learning and growing and being given that opportunity in that time, you take what you need to learn from it and keep pushing through. So that's what I would always tell persons. If you have something to do, make sure that you look your best, make sure that you sound your best, make sure that you're punctual, make sure that you are aware and you know you know of the information. You get what I'm saying? You just put yourself together in that place to say, guess what? From this one opportunity, I am going to get 10 more. I'm going to get 20 more just because I put my best foot forward.
Thank you very much, Talia. We're going to, Talia, I know you have more, but I'm going to ask you to just hold it a little bit. We're going to go to Giovanni and then we have to take questions. And then we'll come back to you, Talia. Is that okay?
Nadine, before you go to Giovanni though, I really want to say this, and it's coming from the whole element of just what private sector is looking for in terms of the marketing and communications persons, because they're not only going to go in media. Your skill sets are very, very critical, and the fundamental skill set that persons must have is a strong EQ, their ability to explain why. They must have an awareness of issues. And when I say
what is an EQ? What is an EQ?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They have to learn and unlearn quickly. Do not slavishly hold on to the things that you think are correct. We have spoken about that as well. And they have to be killer storytellers, right? And you know it's important for us, and especially now when everything is like bite size and palm size. You have to know how to concisely say what you have to say in that time. And you have to write killer stories. It is important in any industry. And the next thing is that they have to be well-rounded, and they have to be analytical and critical thinkers. Don't just take everything at face value. That's all I have to add about.
Okay, well, that's some soft skills and hard skills, of course.
Yes.
Giovanni,
Right.
quickly, students.
two things quickly. So ditto what everyone else has said, but it's important as well. Let's say manners in thriving. Manners is important, and that's a little thing that we learned from our grandparents, especially for those of us in the rural area. Just the simple being polite with persons. So persons who you call for interviews, you tell them thank you when they come and do the interview with you. You follow with them after, because these are some of the same persons who will become sources for you, who will give you major stories that you yourself won't ever think about, because they have the inside knowledge and the inside information. There's also something Jordan said earlier that I wanted to zero in, and he said specialize, but don't just be a specialist in something. But it's important that if you have a talent in a particular area, make sure to excel in that particular area, that nobody else can touch you when you come on to that. For me, I edit well in audio. For somebody else, it's something funny. When I think about political commentators, you always think about Paul Ashley. When you think about someone to come for sports in track and field, for example, you always think Hubert Lawrence or Bruce James, who is also associated with UTech, coincidentally. So stand out so much. Commit yourself, commit your everything to that one particular area, because all of us have that one thing that we are a little bit better at than anything else. And I just want to say excel at that area while also learning the other things, but really need to stand out in your strong area at all times. That's my 2 cents.
And Giovanni, I think that's a good note to end this segment of the lecture on committing yourself, especially in this industry that demands so much of your time. I remember telling some interns that if they wanted to, and Bashan is probably going to laugh if he remembers this, that if they wanted to leave at 5 in the afternoon, that they should go into banking. Sorry, Belinda, that they should perhaps be a bank clerk or a teller. And they were quite offended by that statement, so much so that they remember the years after. But that is something I want to stress with students who are listening now and who will watch the program later, that when you go into media and communication, whether it is private sector or public sector, you have to commit yourself, especially at a young age, because the older you get, you're going to have families, you're going to want to do more things. So when you're young, you do it, and you do it hard, go hard and done. That's what you have to do when you enter the industry. We're going to move now into, we're going to take questions from our students. I'm going to ask you to indicate that you would like to ask a question with the raise hand button. And I call your name and you'll ask the question of whomever you like to ask on the panel. Rajay, I'm seeing Rajay Reed.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Mahmoud. Hi, everyone. I listened to many of the encouraging. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you quite well. We're hearing you quite well.
So I'm quite nervous, but I listened to a lot, and I made sure to write down a lot of questions because I have questions for different persons, but I just want to ask one. But my question, oh God, I lost the page. But my question is, becoming a journalist sounds like fun, but what are some of the heads up you can tell future journalists? That question goes to Miss Berlin, Miss McLeod, you.
What are some of the?
What are some of the heads up you can tell future journalists? Since it's very fun, but then again, what are the heads up you can give to us?
Stick with it during the hard part. For me, I started out in radio production. I started in media, May 5, formal media, that is, May 5, 1999. I started out at Breakfast Club, which is now defunct. It was a current affairs, news and current affairs program. It was there that I realized that I wanted to become a reporter. And I expressed that, and I was surrounded at the time by some people who didn't really believe in me, but I continued and surrounded myself with people who thought that it was something that I could do, and I stuck with the course. I told a lot of people that I wanted to become a reporter. I remember going to another television station. Well, CBM bought out Hot 102. Hot 102 was the the station that Breakfast Club was at. And then I moved on to another radio program. And I told them that I wanted to do radio reporting. And for 3 years, I was telling them I wanted to switch from production to reporting. And I was told that they didn't have any space, and people would come and people would go, and people would come and people would go, until I did my diploma in media and communication. And I realized that, hey, it has been 3 years and people have been coming and going. So I wrote a letter to everybody, all the managers. Nothing rude, just a letter, expressing that I really would like to move to radio reporting. And I was told that a particular member of the management team did not like my voice, and that the speech person at the time, she had said that she couldn't help me. And I called Arthur Hall, who's a well-known journalist he was at Television Jamaica at the time, and he told me that there would have been an opening for 1 year, and I went with that. 1 year turned into 9 years at Television Jamaica. So from this vantage point, I was in media for 18 years until about 19 years and about 3 months, until I decided to go into public relations before what I'm doing now, which is of course lecturing, as you know. But during that time, looking at it from this angle, I would say it may be cliche, it may be like a fool advice, but stick with it and surround yourself with people who believe in you. I remember when I was told that the manager didn't like my voice, and I told a friend of mine, she laughed, and you know what she said? She said, ha ha ha, no, because my God. And they just came around and we prayed about it, and we just went for it. And that was it. So for me, it is the stick-to-itiveness why I was able to do what I really wanted to do in media, and to thrive in media. Your next question?
Right.
Oh, I'm seeing Reggie will come back to you. Daniel McLaughlin.
Yes, good evening. I have a question for Mr. Jordan Fort.
Jordan, are you hearing Daniela?
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Yes, so I am a female and I aspire to work in sports journalism, which is a male-dominated field. Do you have any tips for me, sir?
Well, I wouldn't. You see, well, of course, I think you're right. I said it's a male-dominated field, but I wouldn't even want to look at it through those lenses if I were you. And I'm glad that you actually asked this question, because I was going to point out that I want to see more women in sports journalism. And Andre made a distinction earlier about journalism and sports journalism, but I tend to find that women shy away from doing sports journalism. And I want to say that if you have a true passion for sports, that it is something that you should pursue, and that it is something that you can get to the very top in. I don't want you to look at it through the lens of it being a male-dominated area. I just think that's the case because a lot of women actually shy away from it. I mean, but I don't know what
people like Karen Madden. I mean, she is a very good journalist. I think. Sure,
yeah, sorry. I was about to mention that on our sports team we have a couple now. We have 3 now actually. Karen Madden, who you will see presenting, TVJ Sports on a weekly basis. Trishana McGowan and Denise Walters are 3 who we actually have as a part of the team as we speak. And I know that it was, the objective of the managers to actually get more women in. So my advice to you, don't be intimidated by the fact that there are more men in the industry than women. That means nothing. Your knowledge as a woman is just as valuable, and sometimes women are actually more knowledgeable in certain areas than men. And in fact, I think that you have a unique opportunity now, because many media houses are looking at, because they're trying to model themselves of what they see internationally. Yeah. And you need to pay attention to what's going on internationally, because internationally there are quite a few women in sport, and it's it's actually not by accident. They are deliberately targeting getting more women into the space. And to me, it absolutely enhances the quality of the presentation. It actually enhances the quality of the production. Nadine was just saying that one of her managers or one of her bosses said that she didn't have a nice voice. Well, I don't know what they were listening to, or maybe your voice has changed. No, Nadine, because I think that's probably one of the best, one of the most noticeable attributes about you the first time anybody hears you is the quality of your voice. And I think as women, you guys have so much to add to the sports landscape that I think it is something that more women should actually look to get into once you have that passion for sport, because sports, unlike, I would say, maybe news or entertainment, and of course, I know you have news and entertainment journalists here, so they will, attack me if I'm wrong. But sports is very niche, It's one of those areas that you have to be passionate about, you have to be very knowledgeable about, because different sports have so many different intricacies and nuances that you have to go around. But if you really love sports, you should really pursue it.
Yes.
So sports is about scores?
Pardon me? Is that on?
About scores?
No, sports is not just about scores.
And that that question highlights why more women should be in sports. Because men would choose to talk about the stats, women would choose softer stories. For example, I think Karen won an award for female footballers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and stuff like that,
It's just so refreshing. It's so, to me, as I said before, anytime I look at even horse racing now internationally, they have women doing the post-race interviews, and I just think it's just so much better after you hear the men upstairs analyzing to go down and to hear a woman's voice, and questions coming from a woman's perspective. It adds a lot of value that men cannot add to it.
I also think it's important for Daniela to also realize that it's not as simple as women just applying for sports jobs. I mean, you clearly have to also acknowledge the structural issues surrounding women getting into sports. So it's not as clear-cut as simply just applying. There are also structural issues that you clearly have to consider.
Such as?
The profession preferences men. Sports, there's a preference and there's a sort of bias towards men entering sports.
That if she can distinguish herself.
The fact that locally, Karen and Trishan and others have been able to break through into sports does not sort of punch hole into the fact that there are structural issues surrounding women getting into sports.
Actually, it's correct. It's a predominantly male sector. But what happened is you have persons there, Jordan. So what ought to happen is that if Daniela really is interested in this, she can sit at their feet and hear from them some of the things and how they would have gotten started. And then we do need more. So, and I do see that going forward, especially with the whole notion of equity and balance and letting the right person get the right job and so on, we do see that there's going to be an opportunity for all of this to change. But the only change can happen when you prepare yourself and position yourself, and you do so in a very fundamental way that is going to let you stand out. Again, we would have said this in different ways. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you have to do good at your craft.
Yeah, I don't want
that standing out part, Daniela, it's very, very important. And that is for everybody, but especially sports. If you can stand out, because I know personally that Karen, she was interested in sports from St. Andrew High School, right? In fact, her teachers thought that she was an athlete, that she was one of the athletes. So going into sports was a natural progression for her. But yes, there are structural issues. You were saying, Jordan?
Yeah, I was saying, I know I don't want to take up too much time, and I know I heard what Vashan said. I know that there are a few barriers. I don't want her to think of those, because the reason I said that, I'm not trying to be unrealistic here or speak of this as if it is some kind of idealistic situation. But the fact that Karen Madden, and I know she's not here, but I think about maybe 4 or 5 years into her being a sports journalist, was awarded the Sports Journalist of the Year, and was actually nominated in the Journalist of the Year category, I think speaks volumes. I think some of those old notions are changing, and they're changing very, very rapidly, very rapidly.
All right, Nadine, can I also add to that? Part of what we said earlier too was being able to be open to opportunities, because we're talking about Karen now, and Karen didn't start
Yes.
as a sportscaster or as a journalist. She actually started. She probably had like 3 different jobs before she before she got the job that she has now. So you have to seize on opportunities, and that's kind of the point we're making earlier.
Okay, thank you. Rachel Seaton. Rachel, your question. Michaela Roberts.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I have 4 questions, one particularly for Talia, pertaining to how is it that you balance both media and law? And I have 3 more for the news anchors. How difficult is it that you can come up with stories, and those stories, if and when they are emotional, how do you compose yourself to bring across those stories in front of a live TV? And what is the most challenging task that you face on a daily basis?
Talia, you go first, and then the report.
I should say that it's so interesting that most of us who are in media, we have another job balancing most of the time. But how I balance law and media is that I've been grateful to work with or have seniors who allow my flexibility and just allow me to get the job done. What's also very important is that I know my priorities and I prioritize accordingly. So I know what is important for the rest of the week, what I need to get done for the rest of the week, and I will prioritize accordingly and go off that.
Sure.
Sometimes it's also important to know when to say no and don't overextend yourself. You have to find that balance. No is not a sin, and saying no is not a bad thing, because you are only one person, and you have to remember that sometimes you just need a break, and not only a physical break but a mental break, and it's always important for you to remember that and for you to put yourself first. I'll also say, always remember what is important to you. So priorities in terms of tasks is important, but what is important to you and what you're going to invest most of your energy in. So a typical day for me used to be, because I'm no longer with a small firm, but a typical day for me, I think I'd go to the gym in the morning, then I'd go to work for 9:30. In the afternoon, I'd go on the radios. Depending on what I have to do on my day, I'd probably go back to my office. Then I'd probably go back and I'll probably have a shoot after, or I'll probably have a function to host or to MC or something to that effect. When I have intense, I also have to shoot on a Friday morning. I go to my office, depending if I have court, because I was in litigation at the time. So my planner was my best friend. And in terms of prioritizing my task, that was very important. But I also knew the importance of when my body spoke to me, I knew when to say no. And when I needed to balance taking a break versus doing everything. And the last thing I'd leave with you, because I know there are other questions and I can't take up all the time, is you have to know what you want for yourself. So if it is that you have a number of passions and a number of interests, it is okay to multitask. It is okay to be multifaceted, and it is important, and it is okay to dabble in everything and learn as much as you can, right? Take up all this information while you have it, and get as much practice and learn as much as you can while you have the time and you are young. You get what I'm saying? I mean, young is relative, but you know what I mean. While you have the opportunity, soak it all up, right? Because don't limit yourself to say, boy, I'm only in media, I'm only going to learn everything in media versus not doing something else. And then eventually you will decide and determine what your passion is. I mean, what's probably paying you a little bit better, what makes you sleep better at night, over time that will come to you. But it is always important to soak up as much information and knowledge and network as much as possible. Don't stretch yourself too thin, but don't limit yourself at the same time. And it's always important to know that. Don't stretch yourself too thin, but don't limit yourself, because when you limit yourself, that's just where it stops. So even if somebody see the talent in you and see how great you are, if you limit yourself and if you put that block in your mind, that's as far as you will go. So just don't be afraid to grow and soak it up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Vashon to answer the second. Thank you very much, Talia.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Vashon to answer the second part of the question, and then Rachel, we're coming back to you. I saw your comment where you said that you were actually speaking to us earlier, so you can just find out what's that. Vashon, you can answer the second part, and then we go to Rachel.
Nadine, remind me of that one again.
He was asking about how do you deal with emotional stories? How do you compose yourself when you're anchoring the news?
Well, I actually don't try to hide my emotions when I'm reading a sad story about a family, because I think viewers do understand that you're human and you're not separating yourself from the stories that you read about. So for example, I remember I was reading a story about 5 men that were shot and killed, and my emotions were showing. I mean, I didn't pretend as if I was separated from the fact that families are hurting. So I don't do the kind of separation that a lot of news anchors say they do, but I try to ensure that whatever I do, my professional composure remains while I'm on air.
Okay, thank you very much. Rachel Seaton, we're going to try back before we go to Rachel Britton. Rachel, still not hearing you. You have to type it. Rachel Britton. Rajay, back to you. Rajay Reed, back to you.
Okay, I'm here. Yes, Miss Macro. So this question is for Miss Talia. You are in the entertainment industry, right? So you're an entertainment journalist, and you're an attorney at law. However, this is a question pertaining to entertainment. So how can one be grounded in themselves enough to be a good entertainment journalist?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I think what's important is, I think a lot of times persons view entertainment as being fickle. And a lot of times we underestimate the value it is to our culture, just to our country, both locally and internationally. It's important for you to not be in a race with, because you asked me, it's important for me to not what, sorry?
The question was, how can one be grounded in himself enough to be a good journalist?
So in terms of being grounded in yourself in entertainment, it is always important for you to run your own race and for you not to try and keep up with the Kardashians that don't exist. It is very important for you to do that, because especially in our world and in the social media era where everyone is caught up in showing their best, being their best, looking their best, when sometimes that's not always the case. You have to always remember what is true and what is dear to you and what means the most to you. And I think someone asked me this question the other day, how I balance, the public life and entertainment and all of that. And I actually told her that most of the times, the things that mean the most to me don't make it on social media, especially at the same time. And that's because sometimes when things really mean the most to you and mean they're very dear to your heart, you want to protect it, and people especially in our time on social media, they can be mean for no reason and they can tear you down for no reason. And as a result of that, allow you to second guess yourself and question yourself when in truth, you really shouldn't have, because you know your greatness and you know how great you are within. So you have to find that balance with trying to keep up this image and maintain an image and staying true to yourself and staying true to your core and actually what's important to you, what values you hold and what's there to you, and learning how to protect that, but still letting people in your space, because the fact that you are in media, people want to know a little bit about you, people want to know a little bit about your life, but you have to try and find that balance to not try and keep up with something that really doesn't even exist. And that's how you stay true to yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajay. We're still going to try for Rachel. And this is from Rachel Britton. Did you ever have the feeling, and this is to Talia, do you ever have the feeling that being a part of the entertainment industry might taint your career as a lawyer?
No.
As an attorney?
No, I didn't. I think that it was important for me to become an attorney, actually just complete my studies in terms of foundation. It was something that I could always turn to. But I never thought that it would, because I set a standard for myself, and I set it at a point where I know that this is what I would not do and I do not want to do. And anything that would probably jeopardize my reputation in terms of my legal career, then I set that standard and I say, I don't think I would want to go this route in entertainment, but I would prefer to go this route in entertainment, if you kind of understand what I'm saying.
Yes,
so
yes.
I would stay right field and not go left field, because you can still do entertainment and you can still present and you can still do entertainment journalism without going on a stage and doing a spit on the top of your head.
Yes. Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
yes.
you have to find that balance, and you have to look to say, okay, do I want to throw this all away, or do I want to find a balance and do both? Because believe it or not, when I go to court, the judges do recognize me. You understand? And they hold you to the same standard as any other attorney who will present himself in front of them. You know, so you have to find that balance. I was never afraid that it would tarnish my reputation, because I knew what I would do and I knew what I would not do. And persons have called me before, and they have called me and said, I want you to host a party for me. Yeah. And I'm looking and I'm saying, I don't really want to host any party for anybody, because I mean, yes, you can dress sexy and you can dress pleasing to the eyes, but maybe what I'm gonna go to do at your party and host your party, you're not going to want me to do that. You get
so you have
me?
to maintain a respectable disposition.
Right. So I mean, you have to kind of balance it. And I'm saying, well, if I go to host your party, probably a corporate company is not going to call me to host a forum next week. So it's all about finding that balance. I mean, entertainment can be fun. It can, you know, of course, it can still keep you in the field, but it's all about finding that balance. So no, you just have to know what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, and stick to it.
Sure. Thank you very much. Rachel, please lower your hand. Michaela,
Nadine.
Yes. Belinda.
I just really want to continue from something that Talia is saying, and it struck me. I struck a chord when that question was asked, and I realized that many persons are interested because it is something that is akin to entertainment, and it is also akin to being in the media. So they see our role, PR, marketing, communications, anything creative, media, as something that is not a precise science. That you need to treat your job as a profession. And that is what I'm speaking to you now, not only as a professional individual, but also as a mother. If you're into this field, it is not play business. It is something that is serious business. This is someone's profession, and this is what you're going to do as a 9 to 5, and this is what you're going to excel at. Gone are the days when it is, and Andre spoke about it, how difficult it is to transition in the media landscape because persons are there and they stay there for a duration of time. Now, one of the things you have to understand today is that it is no longer about employment for life. It is about employability. And with employability, it takes with it that notion that you have to be relevant in the time and space that you are in. And it is no longer about a corporate ladder. So don't think that you're going to be climbing here, there, and everywhere. It is also a case where it is now a corporate lattice, meaning that is something that is even more
Wow. Complex. Yes.
complex. It's complex. And
So
with
it's
that,
like a lattice work.
it
It's
can
like,
go any way, up, down,
Yes.
way, all
Yes.
over. With that corporate lattice is about that knowledge and skill set that is readily needed at the point in time that is actually going to let you either go up or down or sideways. So I really want everyone, all the students, think about why it is that you're coming in this space. And you need to mix passion with reality. And the
Yes.
reality is that this is a profession.
yes. Yes. Thank you, Belinda. This question is from Faye Roy Dixon to Vashon. I really admire your confidence and how bold you are. What advice can you give to someone who wants to really make it in the industry where confidence is concerned?
All right, thank you so much, Faye, and I appreciate that a whole lot. So for me, it came to me when I was doing my master's in the UK that confidence is sort of like a moving target. Today you feel very confident and bold, tomorrow you might not feel the same. So I think it's important for you to think about confidence as a sort of journey and a continuous journey. Having said that though, one of the ways I use to sort of build my confidence is to participate in forums like this one, where I can speak, I write down my ideas, I have it clear in my mind what I want to say, because I find that once you feel like you've prepared fully for something, the confidence will come. And there's a sort of trick that Simone Clark Cooper taught me when I was doing voice and speech with her, is to always trust yourself. So whenever you have a presentation, you might think that, oh my gosh, it's gonna fall apart, I'm not confident enough, I don't think I have enough to say. But I think that little principle of trusting yourself can go a long way whenever you want to speak in any sort of particular forum.
Thank you very much. Final question before I go back to the panelists to end this lecture. This question is from Rachel Seaton. I would like to pursue journalism and I would like to know the ways I can go about gaining experience within the field by getting that first foot in. Spoke about that earlier, but we'd like to reiterate. Based on my understanding, this industry is very selective about the persons they choose. And for someone like myself who doesn't have a big enough network, I would like to know the ways to achieve that. And this question, I'm going to ask Andre to take it. Jebinson? Vashon, can you take that question?
Sorry, Nadia, repeat.
Oh, Andre? Okay, so this question is from Rachel. She's saying, I would like to pursue journalism and I would like to know the ways I can go about gaining experience within the field by getting the first foot in. Based on my understanding, this industry is very selective about the persons they choose or it chooses. And for someone like myself who doesn't have a big enough network, I would like to know the ways to achieve that.
Yeah, but I think this perception that the news houses are choosing particular people who look a particular way, I think that's probably a thing of the past. I think it's just a matter of having an idea of what you want to do and how you're going to get there. Because what I've told people in the past is that no two people's experience or journey is going to be the same. So I might get a job a particular way, but that's not the way you're going to get the job. But once you have the ability, once you know your skill, once you know what you're doing, and you get your interviews, you need to wow them, because nobody is going to be handing you a job. So it's just a matter of being able to know exactly what you want, know how exactly you're going to get it, and then you need to impress the hell out of people once you get the job interview. You have to show them, and I think Jordan said it earlier, you have to show them that there is something different about you than the other 40 people or other 30 people who are applying for the very same job. What is your niche and how well do you do your niche?
Thank you very much. Abigail, I said that was the last one, but I'm seeing one from Abigail. What advice would you give to persons who are seriously passionate about pursuing a career in media, however, they somewhat doubt themselves as to what they're capable of doing? Who's going to take that? Are you going to take that, Vashon? You spoke about confidence earlier.
Sorry, what was that one?
How you got confident?
Sorry, repeat that one for me.
this question goes up. What advice would you give to persons or to people who are seriously passionate about pursuing a career in media? However, they somewhat doubt themselves as to what they are capable of doing.
Right. So I would say that you sort of work on that confidence, because one of the things you should always think about is that you're competing with people who are very confident about themselves, people who are highly skilled. So I think you have to also consider the people that you're going up against and work on building that confidence. Now, once you've built that kind of confidence, I think this goes back to something that Andre said earlier on, that you then impress people with the skills that you have and show how you can add value to specific places.
Thank you very much. Heidi Campbell?
Oh, sorry, I can just add something.
Sure, Talia.
I think that once you get in the space, or even before, people love persons who are not hard to work with.
Yes.
I think that's something that.
But don't be a diva.
Yeah, people don't like divas and persons who make things extraordinarily hard, or difficult just to get by. People like when you are willing, people like when you are able, people like when you want to learn and you are eager, that youthful exuberance, they love it. I mean, you may not always have it, but they love it. And they like the fact when you are not difficult to work with, you may not always be the best, but if you help to find a solution, and if it is that you help to just make the environment a little bit less tense, even if it's that, and if it is that you are just always willing and you're not hard to work with, they'll be more willing to work with you than someone else who is more confident, who has more experience, just because you're not hard to work with and you're willing to learn.
And people also like people who are real. People don't want the sense that people are trying to do this right, do that right, do that right, to sort of get a job. People also want people to be authentic and to also be themselves.
Thank you very much. Heidi, we're gonna squeeze in Heidi.
Good day. Hello. Is everyone hearing me?
Yes, Heidi.
Okay, so my question is actually to Miss Belinda. And okay, so I know that many persons that are doing this program are very passionate about very specific areas, and a lot of them know exactly what it is that they want to do. But what my question is, do you have any advice for persons who are not quite sure what it is that they want to do, or are not feeling that burning drive or passion like others? Like, is it odd that at this stage, or would you say that I actually have the time to figure it out? Because I'm...
Well, Heidi, it's good that you asked that question, because I'm sure that there are some other persons who are quite like yourself who's trying to figure out exactly what space you're going to fall. The honest truth is that not many of us have a blueprint that is written out and that we're going to follow directly to say this is where we're heading, and we're going to head exactly there. Some of us happen upon it because somebody else is seeing a talent in you, or because you're pursuing a particular path. And when you get there, the doors or the channels will open. It's not to say you're going to sit complacently and not do well and excel in the area that you're pursuing currently. The unfortunate thing is that we all don't have the answers, but the great thing, Heidi, is that you are at a point in time, an inflection point in time, where things and the dynamics of what is happening in COVID is going to open up so many opportunities for you that you're going to find probably an area that, is going to be even on the creative side. Not probably in front of the camera, probably be even on the side of the radio. So there are different opportunities that are there. I can tell you that we pay in the private sector a lot of money for voices. We pay in the private sector a lot of money for talent. And when we even have to use a photo, whether it be one that we buy off stock images and so on, we have to pay for it.
Yes.
The thing is that sometimes we want to even get the talents and we do a data bank of photos and all of that. So there are different things that are, let me tell you, you guys are in an era that has tremendous opportunities. You just have to be able to identify them and to be ready to really seize the opportunity. So don't feel timid, but what I'll say to you is stand up in your space know exactly and take in and soak in. I think Talia spoke about it, Vashan spoke about it, all the other presenters would have spoken about this. Just take in everything that you can grasp at this juncture, because at the end of it, when you're ready to graduate, that just may be your aha moment where you're going to say that having been exposed to all of these things, this is where I want to go. And even when you're going there, you have had enough depth and background knowledge so as to know how it is that you're going to either manage people's expectation, manage your expectation, or guide your career path and develop yourself as you go along. But the good thing is that you are doing something, and in doing something, do it with all your might. That's all I'm saying to you.
Thank you very much. Belinda, you spoke about COVID earlier, and this is a question I'd like us to end on tonight. We're in the midst of a pandemic. COVID is upon us. And of course, COVID has changed the media and communication industry. I was watching a movie the other day, and they had to do animation for a part of the movie because of COVID. Now journalists are mostly working from home. Of course, in print journalism, that was the norm, but it wasn't the norm. But up to when I was there and I was a journalist, that journalists would work from home, especially television journalists. It has also changed the content of programs like talk show. The guests now they're coming from their homes through Zoom or BB Collaborate or other methods. For public relations professionals, and I'm starting with Belinda, and then of course we go to Tanisha and Andre. How has COVID-19 pandemic changed your industry? And for media professionals, what are some opportunities for young people in the industry that is due to COVID-19?
All right, for me, integrated marketing communication approach was always something that we pursued. So it was always a 360, as I told you. But sales and marketing will not be the same and may never return to the normal that we were used to in terms of before the pandemic. Having said that, for me, what we are seeing here now and persons in my industry is that successful interactions are key. And what are successful interactions? It means looking at mixed and complementary channels in communicating. So therefore, we have to master video conversations. We have to master the ability of being very brief. We have to master the ability of getting to the point and getting a key message, having it stick. Knowing having a stick, it was always necessary, but it's even more fundamental now because everybody is going on that space, on that platform. The great thing is with social media and online, because we have to ramp up and fast track our online presence, you have the flexibility and the agility of being able to identify what is working and what isn't working. And that way you can get to take back down content, modify, adjust them, and then you put it up back with a different angle and a different messaging and see exactly how that helps to stimulate the responses that you need. So it's very, very interesting because it now means that I have to also do a lot more videos, a lot more blogs, a lot more conversations, get my people in and moving things in terms of above the line. It's not so much a lot of print, which is something that we never did at Proven anyway. But it's having that conversation that is going to be successful in terms of who we're communicating with and what the key message is and how we're getting that key message out. So that is it for the private sector and marketing and public relations.
Thank you. Tanisha, public sector, communication and customer service.
Right. So for the communication and the customer service, we have recognized as well that some of the things that our government entity would have shied away from, we're recognizing today that it is a must. You know, we spend so much time doing prints and traditional media. Sometimes we shy away from social media and we sometimes don't want to get out there. So a lot of government entity, you recognize that you will just hear about them. But if you check the media and different platforms, you don't really find much about them. But I recognize with the COVID now, everybody's getting out there. It forces us to utilize the platforms that are there, utilize them, and also to navigate to see how we can collaborate all these various platforms to serve our customers better, because at the same time, we also have to look at the kind of clientele we have. For us, a major group of our customer base is pensioners. And you find that a lot of our pensioners who were not on social media platform, they're getting there. They're getting on the platform. So you recognize now that some of the messages that we would go to traditional media to push, we can push them via our social media platform, because we realize at this stage, our clientele, they're recognizing that this is an easier way for them. So it forces us to be more, to think along the line of how we can utilize and intertwine all the various platforms to get out our messages, and do not hide behind persons just walking in to get information, but to push the information out there. And we recognize that a lot of government entity, they are taking this by force. They are out there. If you're not seeing press releases daily, you are seeing different changes on their social media platform and so on. So they are getting out there, and this is what COVID has really pushed for us to do. And we look forward to the brilliant minds as well. So when we were thinking, okay, this is better heard on traditional media, you might find the younger persons come on and they're like, okay, but we can do live streaming here, and we can present a forum here, and we can actually just do a table talk virtually. We don't have to have these table talk with persons coming in and so on. So it is very dynamic, and COVID has pushed us to utilize what the media world has to offer.
Thank you very much. Andre, international communications.
All right, so my role really involves sponsorship, communications, and culture, organizational culture. And a lot of what we've had to do is we've had to, like everybody's doing, we've had to put those online. So we're working with people, with companies or initiatives that we normally would have sponsored, and try to work with them to see how best they can shift some of their activities online and how we can help them in that process. We're talking about medical symposium. How do we still go on with the work? How do we still get people to talk about some of the breakthroughs they're making? We have to take that online as well. Internal and external communications. We have people in Canada, we have people in Montego Bay, we have people in Kingston, we have people in Europe. How do you ensure that even though we're at different physical locations, we still feel that we're still part of one company? And before COVID, we could have gotten together and done activities together. So we have to push those online and try to get people to be interested in them as well. So it's really trying to innovate in an innovative industry, and trying to make people feel as if we're not missing a beat, even though we are still being restricted with COVID and also physical location.
Thank you very much, Andre.
Oh, and one of the things we've done, is, for example, an online booth where we show some of what we do in our company. So if we're going to an online—
Is that like a virtual tour?
Right. So if you're going to a symposium which is online, you still can enter one of our booths, because we have outfitted it so people can come in and get a very clear idea of some of the things that we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. For the media professionals, what are some new opportunities for young people in the industry? And those are opportunities that's caused by COVID, or that's created, by COVID. We're going to start with Vashon, and then Jordan for sports, and then Talia.
I do think it's sort of re-energized the online space. So one of the things we now have a lot of in the media is people now employed to focus particularly on YouTube and getting content out through those kinds of platforms. But I do want to touch a bit on the changes that we've seen, certainly from our standpoint, working in journalism. So you spoke earlier on about Zoom. I know those kinds of stories that you like to do, Nadine, touch at the heart of people. So when you talk about Zoom, you also have to talk about the people that would be excluded from our platform. So you know that we still have to go out in the field to get to those stories that strike at the heart of people. But one of the other things as well is it's pretty much challenged the idea of what a newsroom is. I mean, the newsroom is right here in my living room where I'm talking to you. Before I came on, I actually wrote my story and voiced it and sent it into TVJ for it to be aired tonight. And so I think the idea of a newsroom, this entire period has sort of challenged what we've always understood to be a newsroom.
So it's pushing the boundaries of the postmodernism theory, which you students will learn about later in this module, where social reality is no longer structured and a set way. It is fragmented and it is constantly changing and fluid. So basically, that's what you're saying, Vashan, to put it
right,
in.
Pretty much, Nadine. You've put it in the correct theoretical
framework.
framework.
Yes. Jordan, for sports, what new opportunities created by COVID-19?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I think, as you said, an interesting point that Vashan made was about, telling the stories. It's interesting that the people who say they're, interested in media so far haven't asked any questions about, storytelling, because I think if you're going to go into specifically reporting, whether you're going to be a writer or you're going to be in electronic media, whether that be radio or TV or anywhere really, is that you need to be able to tell stories.
And Giovanni, not only the content from in front of the camera, but content from behind the camera. I find that videographers who know how to tell stories are better than just a person who wants to shoot.
Precisely.
Who wants to hold the camera. Yes.
Precisely. And a good videographer can add so much to your story. I think one of the main challenges with this whole COVID period, and you speak about the fact that some people are disenfranchised because they don't necessarily have the technology to be able to do Zoom interviews and so on. And so the people who you are trying to reach in certain areas, if you're trying to tell a story of somebody who, is living in poverty, or is, in some kind of dilapidated situation where they live, and you're trying to bring that story to people, because that's a big part of what we do, is that you may not be, you're not going to be able to reach them through Zoom, obviously. They barely have the proper, living structures, much more to have technology and so on. So that is one of the challenges. And I think certain stories that you're trying to tell are always still better told by you and Nadine and Vashan and Andre, all of you, and Gio, can attest to this, by you going to that person and looking them in the eye and feeling the raw emotions, and you being in that space, that person occupies, to be able to bring that story to the viewers and to your listeners and to your readers if you're writing. So I think that is one of the major challenges. But again, like everything else, you have to find a workaround. I was able to tell a story recently about a cricketer who had recovered from COVID-19. And, I had to do it on Zoom. I had to do the interview on Zoom. And to be honest with you, as much as I'm afraid of, contracting the virus from anybody, I would actually have loved to have been able to get that inside track into when they were actually going through the period of being ill. And that would tell so much more of a compelling story. But one of the workarounds you have to find is, obviously you have to use up technology. And I think, this is the University of Technology, right? So that shouldn't be something foreign to your students. And I think that is one of the major advantages now that Belinda was talking about, that young people at university now have, is that everybody now is supposed to be well versed in the technology age and supposed to be, easily adaptable to using Zoom and whatever other Blackboard Collaborative, whatever other, other media platforms, other social media platforms. And that is actually going to give you, right now in this space, an advantage over the older folks who are not well versed in the computer age. That is going to give you an advantage. So use that to your advantage.
Thank you very much. Talia?
I'll just add, what Vashan and Jordan said, that because of COVID-19, it really has re-energized the social space online. And as a result of that, I realized there have been a lot more opportunities for the Zoom, for the Instagrams, for the YouTube. Many persons now have their YouTube accounts, and they're actually channeling that energy there, and making that creative space work for them, because of course, a lot of persons just get paid from YouTube alone, based on the number of subscribers that you have and that kind of thing. But it's also important for us to use the opportunities to kind of expand and just expound on the content that you have. You know that with COVID-19, it has affected the entertainment industry tremendously. Like literally all the artists who used to travel, and when nobody is in Jamaica, everybody's grounded right now, or most of them at least, they're grounded and stuck in Jamaica because they don't have live shows, they don't have concerts, they don't have, none of that is taking place. We only saw where recently in the UK, I think they actually attempted to have an outdoor concert where they had the barriers between everybody. Everybody had their own little station and their own little stage. And they were just trying something because we really don't know what's going to come next. But what we have realized is that a lot of persons in entertainment, they've been using the spaces, the Instagrams, the YouTube, the Zoom as well, to make sure that, guess what, you still get their content. So believe it or not, they're still producing, they're still releasing a number of new tracks. Everybody wants an interview now. Whoever you could have found before to do an interview or get an interview from, everybody is available right now. They will even want to come in studio, but we're actually restricted because of the COVID-19 protocols. But at the end of the day, they are available, right? And they're making themselves available because they still want their presence felt, they still want to be heard. And as the Jamaican saying is, out of sight, out of mind, they can't afford for that to happen, right? So they have to make sure that you're still receiving their content, whether it is their music videos, their press releases. And guess what? They need persons to do this for them. They need persons to shoot their videos. They need persons to write their press releases. They need persons to schedule their interviews. They need these people, which is where the PR comes in, which is where your videographer comes in, which is where a studio engineer will come in. And these are all different aspects of media. I also had something else to add to that, where every organization is upping on social media content right now. And as a result of that, there is a space there for you. As I mentioned, with the engineers, your videographers, your presenters, your writers, there is a space there for you, because out of sight, out of mind. And that not only goes for persons in entertainment, but every single agency, organization, they need to be heard, they need to be seen, they need to still be felt. And they need people to push. And they need people to get the information out there. They need people to put this together, and they need the machine to get it done. And that's where you will come in. So even if we are moving away from traditional media in some aspects, we're actually, as a result of COVID-19, moving in a different direction. And believe it or not, doors are opening left, right, and center. It's just for you to just tap into them and make the best out of them. Yes, we're still missing that one-on-one personal feel and connection, but at the same time, we still have to make the best out of the opportunities that have arisen because of COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Talia. Thank you very much to the rest of the panelists. And this brings us to the end of our communication and media lecture for today. I'll see you at tutorials. I'll see you at your tutorial sessions, rather. Thanks to all of you guys, the media and communication professionals who came out, who gave us your time to speak to the students. Thanks to our production team here, guys. We have a camera, we have lighting, we have a control, we have a big production thing happening here because of COVID-19 and Zoom. We have so we've basically fused television production and Zoom together, right? But if you fuse them, they're together. So we're very excited about this. I will see you guys. We will speak about this. You know that. I'm Nadine McLeod. Walk good, stay safe, and next time, until next time. Thank you. And it was kind of rough, but we will think that tomorrow.